it strikes me that, there's a market out there for your book, your Kendi-esque book, How to Raise a Mixed Race Baby.
Anti-racist baby. Yeah.
Yeah, how to do an anti-racist child, how to do an anti-racist babies. It's a whole industry.
You know what? All power to him, but I've been around long enough, just long enough, and so have you. He won't last. We've seen this. There's a type who are big for about 10 years, and then they've done all that they have. I sense that in him. It's not going to be forever. He's not going to be 50 and 60 and still being taken as a guru. He's now. And it's going to be like that. I can think of several people since I've been doing this.
Well, I'm going to guess that you're thinking of Ta-Nehisi Coates, and the question in my mind is what has ever happened to him? I haven't heard from him in a while.
He's a good example, or you can go further back. Touré. Remember when Touré was the big thing?
Yeah, I do remember Touré.
And Touré's brilliant, etc., but he's not now. And, I don't have anything against Touré, but there was a time when one might have thought he was on his way to becoming, tippy-top, black leftist public intellectual, and that did not really happen. And we don't need to tick off people like this, because I'm not saying there's something wrong with it, but I get the feeling that who we're talking about is not going to be Michael Eric Dyson, who, always keeps on ticking. They're ones who kind of come and go, and I think that I get the feeling he's going to be one of those people.
That's an interesting observation, set of observations, actually, an invitation to survey the black public intellectual scene, the three named people and whatnot. What about Melissa Harris Perry, you could say, or, and then there are others that you could name that would,
I didn't want to say her because...
And what about the young Coleman Hughes looking in the other direction, sort of retrospectively looking forward? Do you think he has legs? And I'm not asking you to answer that question because he's our friend and we don't want to dissect him in public, but
no,
the question does...
No, it's interesting you bring him up because Melissa Harris Perry is also someone who I think was making a bigger noise 10 years ago than now, but it's easy to forget that she is now doing The Takeaway on National Public Radio.
I know, she does a good job at it too.
And she's really good.
Say so.
I think she's fantastic.
She's very good at it.
And so she's not...
And it's a hard thing to do, that kind of... I could tell you as host of the Gliss Show, I would not want the responsibilities of doing that NPR show.
All the time. No, she is to the manner born on that show, and I think so. She has held on. She's not the type who wants to write a book every 2 or 3 years. That's not what she does. But she's there. Oh, another one, Tavis Smiley, big deal for a while, and now not. But Coleman,
he had a pack of duo. He had some stuff.
He had a little of the Me Too
relationships on the job and stuff like that, and he also got on the wrong side of Obama. Tavis Smiley did.
Yes, that took care of him.
That didn't help when Obama was the fucking.
I think that's what it mainly was. That yeah, if he had not been against Obama, I think he might still. Yeah, and as for Coleman, I'm not just saying this because he's part of our posse. I really believe that in 20 years he will still be around because, frankly, he has a certain versatility. He's interested in a lot of things. I think he will be very open to watching the world change and adjusting to it instead of just saying the same thing over and over again. I think that Coleman with graying hair and, on MSNBC, having his own podcast, I can see it very easily because he, frankly, has a lot of arrows in his quiver. So, yeah, he'll last.
Coleman, and that's interesting. I agree. I agree with your forecast. We'll see. Time will tell. Let's hope that I'm around to observe the trajectory of the great Coleman Hughes. But it raises a question about, and I agree with your assessment. The reason I agree with your assessment because I think he's got a really good head on his shoulders. He's got a high IQ. He's smart. He's an intellectual. He reads books and he thinks about them. He has interesting thing to say about books. So, he's got his... Well. He's got, exactly. Oh, you can take pride in that being a Columbia faculty member. He's got this thing that's coming up. What is he writing about? Colorblindness or something like that. He's got a book contract, and there will be a book. It'll be his God and Man at Yale kind of statement, early in his career. analogous to the great William F. Buckley.
That is a good analogy.
Yeah, yes. What he needs is a regular platform. He has his podcast, Conversations with Coleman, and he has his music enterprises and whatnot. A place where he is regularly sounding off in a reflective way about the issues of the day. And, I agree. I'm bullish on it.
I don't expect to see him fade. But yeah, it's been interesting to me to see the ones who were the ones to beat in, say, 2003, and then what's happened since. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm gloating or anything like that. It's interesting.
Yes, you are.
Well, no. I think to myself, wow, that's the person who would have always been on the panel with or against me in, say, 2005. Haven't heard a word from them since. Wonder why. As opposed to you and I did things back in the early 2000s, and here we are now. And what's the difference? And I think part of it is that you and I have kind of a niche market. It's just there are only so many people who take our positions, and so it's harder. It's easier to stay around because we're dependables. But so I'm not gloating. But in terms of who the people, especially on the other side, are, it's interesting. Just who lasts and who doesn't. Ishmael Reed, for example, early 2000s, he wrote some books. He was on TV a lot. He was on the radio a lot. He was beating up on me.
I like him. I think he's a great novelist.
He may be, but he would not like your positions on race. And if you two ever appeared on a show together, he would be gratuitously abusive, as he was towards me back then.
I corresponded with Ish Reed back in the day, 25 years ago. He thought I was interesting. I mean, I'm sure you were right. He disagreed. He was in Oakland, as I recall, and was very integrated into the local activist scene, as well as, I like Reckless Eyeball, and that's his novel that I really, really admire. But there was another one that I also liked. I thought he was a Stanley Crouch era black intellectual. That is Ishmael Reed. I say was. I shouldn't use the past tense. Stanley has passed away, God rest his soul, but I assume Ishmael Reed is still with us.
He is, yeah. He's beginning to be lionized as the grand old man for his literary work. But no, I bear no hate. It was a long time ago, but he was impossible towards me when I started. Told lies about me in public, on the radio, on Michael Eric Dyson's radio show, got into my family history, including my mother's slide into mental decline after the age of 50.
Oh, no.
He was mean. And
it was
over the line.
It's way below the belt.
Ishmael thought I was, this interloper who didn't mean what I said. And then after about 2006, he stopped hearing from him in those settings. And he's very much alive. But, people come and people go in playing that particular role. He has a book called Another Day at the Front. I believe it's 2004. You can imagine what it's like. It's all full of typos. You can tell he wrote it very quickly and very angry. And it includes the lies about me. And I don't know, Glenn, I'm surprised you and him ever had anything to do with each other. He is
I think he thought it was interesting, and he reached out with this kind of correspondence. Did we write like that anymore? I mean, I don't think we write like that anymore. Letters to people that you don't know about ideas, But it was a little bit like that. But I'm sure he thought I was a running dog, lackey of the racist white, a sellout Uncle Tom, whatever. Adolf Reed also wasn't very fond of me.
The way Adolf treated you is the way Ishmael treated me. Yeah, exactly.
You know the story about Adolf.
That thing he said at that party. Yeah, where he
to my daughter.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Asked
and he
her
referred to
she
your
was
past.
a part of a mystery family.
Right. No, that's unspeakable. That's that sort of stuff.
But anyway.
You know how some of the feedback we get implies that we're the ones who start that stuff? There are people who think, for example, that we started jumping all over people like Coates and Kendi, when they don't realize that in both Coates and Kendi's case, they started it. They're the ones who, come out.
They started it.
Bunch it. Kendi has called me an embarrassment on Twitter not too terribly long ago. But people seem to think that we're just these nasty guys who, are punching and saying all these terrible things. I don't think a lot of people realize how mean, frankly, everybody can be. Like Coates, for example. I've noticed that a lot of people in the business, a lot of white men in the business in particular, think of him as this courtly gentleman, and they have no idea of the way Coates wrote about me very often, long before I said anything about him. They really don't know, and they can't imagine it. They can't imagine that sort of thing would ever have come from Coates, and now we're just talking about blog posts in the Atlantic that nobody reads anymore. They have no idea. It's interesting to me. And so they're always surprised when I don't jump out of my seat and praise Coates. But I think about all the names he called me and all that stuff. A lot of people don't know about this shit that goes on between a lot of us that doesn't make it into the pages of Harper's or something like that. It's just something I've always been struck by.